This has really become one of those topics that has been really important to me in my work. And so I look forward to sharing some of what I've learned with all of you. My agenda for this afternoon includes safety, skills, and autism. Why are children with autism at risk? We'll talk about the research-based addressing safety, some skills to teach to increase safety. I want to show you an assessment tool for assessing safety, which is, I think, a great starting point for anyone looking to work on this area in their home. And then work with you on developing an individualized safety plan that could work for you and your family. So why safety? The next few slides are not meant to disturb you. I'm just going to give you facts of some of the limited data out there in terms of the safety of individuals with autism. Let's start with a study by the American Journal of Public Health. They published and examined national mortality data, which found that individuals with autism died on average 35.8 years younger than those without disabilities. The alarming difference seemed to be caused by injury. And so our learners with autism tend to get injured more often. And that was quite striking. Additionally, Danish researchers reported that the mortality rate among those with autism is twice as high as those without autism. In 2001, a California team discovered elevated death rates among those with autism, and these were largely due to drowning. So we will spend some time talking about water safety and drowning today, because we do know that this is a big number of those with autism losing their lives to drowning. Team in 2001 looked at a larger population of persons with autism and found that 202 occurred in a 15-year period. While most were for medical reasons, accidents, and unavoidable loss of life, 11 were from drowning, 8 suffocations, and 30 deaths from other external causes. Consider these things like motor vehicle accidents. In 2007, the National Autism Association polled parents online, and 92% of the parents reported that they had a child with autism who was at risk of wandering. A few years later, another study came around finding that almost half of all children with autism wander. We'll be talking more about wandering later on, given the amount of learners who do engage in this type of behavior. This does hit close to home for Alpine. We had some scary moments ourselves. Many years ago, a 4-year-old student was at her home after school, and she decided she wanted to go to the library. She left her house without permission. She didn't make an initiation. There were no clues that she was going to leave the house. It literally took 1 second, and she was out the door. She was missing for over an hour. The police were called. She was finally found about an hour later as she was walking home, reading the book that she had wanted to read. We came to the realization that she had to cross a major highway to get to that library, and that added additional concern, but at the same time, great relief. We got lucky this time. Sarah made it home safe and sound, and clearly, while we thought she was lost, she knew exactly where she was going. However, we had another student, a 7-year-old boy. He traveled to his family's vacation home on a lake. While the parent was in another room, Devin was able to exit the back door. He walked down to the lake and drowned. This is the main reason I give this talk. I was this learner's family consultant and knew this family very well. I knew all the precautions they had in place in this home. I knew the number of locks. I knew the family was trained in making sure these locks were always on the door, but it only took a second of that door to be left open, and my heart broke. He was found drowned. And the reason why I'm so happy to give this presentation is I feel like every time somebody learns something from this talk, Devin continues to impact more and more people. I found this survey interesting, but unfortunately not surprising. 93% of parents considered safety skills an important part of their child's education. I think we would all agree there, right? In order for your child to learn, they have to be in a safe environment. Yet 81% of those parents also stated that their child's IEP never had a safety skill as an instructional goal. One of my goals for you today is to show you that the research tells us our kids can learn these skills. So how do we go about identifying the skills needed, and how do we teach skills so you are better prepared to change this statistic? So let's talk about some of the safety concerns. Just like you see in this picture, our kiddos may not understand what is safe versus unsafe, right? So climbing furniture, eating items left around the house like detergents or medications, the fact that weapons can hurt someone, walking in a street not understanding vehicle danger, and of course, stranger danger in and of itself, just doesn't mean much to many of our learners. Likewise, they may not understand the risks of elopement, wandering away from adults, or pica, such as eating non-edible objects like nails, buttons, paper clips, not understanding what that would do to your health. So these are all some of the safety concerns that we have. Additionally, abduction, sexual assault, drowning, and fire safety. My goal is to not make you panic here, but you can see a lot can happen that our learners are not prepared for. So we will talk about how to prepare them for these types of safety concerns in a bit. For now, let's talk about why individuals with autism are especially at risk. For many of our children, understanding what others are telling them is difficult. For example, explaining to a child with autism why he should not sit on top of that fireplace may be an ineffective way to communicate the danger. Due to the communication deficits, it may be difficult for our children to tell you what they are thinking or wanting, making it difficult for us to act accordingly, right? So we don't know that that learner wants to go outside. We may not know that that learner wants to go get a tape from the library. And so it's difficult for us to know that our job at that point is to block an elopement, for example. Many individuals with autism lack social and emotional awareness. So reading facial cues of a very serious parent telling them, "No way, Jose," in a firm tone to go outside may not be effective. Discriminating between good decisions and bad decisions, super difficult, right? Difficulty with generalization can also be a challenge. When the learner observes that he can swim in his pool while his parents are watching, well, then why can't I swim in my neighbor's pool that looks really cool, right? Limited observational learning also plays a part. If the child sees his sibling burn herself on a stove, he may not learn from that observation not to touch a hot stove. And last but not least, general compliance to adult requests, not taking no for an answer and doing it anyway. These are just some examples, but I hope you get the idea of why this can be so difficult for individuals with autism to understand risks all around them. We may also be addressing some challenging behaviors, such as escape-related behaviors, darting, pacing, destructive behavior, pica, climbing that may set the stage for a dangerous situation. These may all be challenging behaviors that your child engages in on a regular basis. Also, learners with preoccupations are also at a higher risk. For example, a learner who enjoys water in general, whether that's pools or lakes or oceans, that preoccupation with water could really put your child at a higher risk for drowning. Same could be said for a learner who enjoys fire. If a learner enjoys fire, they might be at a higher risk for burns, property destruction, and worse. And so these are the types of learners that we would want to really, really work with to address their preoccupations with dangerous items. Sensory activities may make safety challenging as well. So for example, if a learner does not like the feel of the seatbelt across her, this would make riding in a car really impossible, right? I know you probably wouldn't feel comfortable putting your child in a car if she couldn't wear a seatbelt. Same could be said about riding a bike without a helmet. Because the learner does not like the way that makes them feel, they tend to not allow that to happen. And so we have to teach those types of skills. So what does the research tell us about teaching safety skills? And I want you to really get ready for some good news, okay? Because I know so far I've been giving you the doom and gloom, but I have good news ahead for you. So stick with me. What we've learned from the research is that children with autism can be taught safety skills. There are several teaching strategies to consider when teaching safety skills, from video modeling, behavioral skills training, instruction, modeling, role-playing, feedback, simulating training when you can't be in the actual situation. So sometimes we do a lot of simulation training at school to be generalized into the community or the home or the vacation setting, or in situ training when we're actually in the correct situation to teach that skill. These have all been shown to be effective in teaching safety skills to children with autism. So let's get a little bit more specific. I'll run through a few studies. I'll talk about them very broadly. However, at the end, I'm happy to work with you on receiving copies of these studies if you are interested in them. So in a 2014 study, video modeling was used to successfully teach first aid skills to children with autism. Very cool. In 2010, Summers' research team taught 2 skills to 2 groups of children with autism. The one group learned to get an adult upon hearing a doorbell ring, right? Because we want to teach learners to not answer the door because they're not sure what comes next or who's at the door. So it's better to have an adult answer the door. And the second group learned to leave an area when hazardous chemicals were visible and tell an adult. So for example, you see the little boy there looks at all these dangerous chemicals. Rather than playing with them or opening them or figuring out what they are, this team taught learners to identify that they are visible and leave and tell an adult. In 2010, through the use of behavioral skills training, verbal instruction, video modeling, live modeling, and rehearsal, 3 children with autism were taught to respond to lures by saying no, running away, and telling an adult. The following year, another group of researchers taught children with autism to do similarly. When they hear a lure, they say no, and they follow a motor response, whether that's walking or running away, leaving the situation. In 2016, participants were taught to refuse, walk away, and report across 4 types of lures. A simple request such as come with me. Appeals to authority such as I asked your mom and she said it was okay. Assistance requests such as can you help me with my puppy? And incentive requests such as come on, I'll give you your favorite candy or buy you your favorite shirt. Tried anything to lure these learners, and this study taught them to say no and walk away. Also in 2016, children with autism were taught fire safety using modeling and rehearsing. We've learned in the school community that we run fire drills, and I do a lot of work teaching people that we don't just run fire drills just to run fire drills. It's also a training opportunity for our learners to learn that when you hear this bell, this is what you do. And as we start to fade back to assess the student's ability to follow those drills, it's amazing what you'll see as you start to see them sometimes stand up and go toward the door of the room before staff even do. They're now getting it because there's that much practice and consistency in what to do each time that bell sounds. I am proud to say Alpine contributed to the areas of research by teaching teenagers with autism to seek assistance when lost and to answer cell phones and seek assistance when lost. One of the issues is our students don't always know when they're lost, right? So they may be heading to their favorite location. They sit back in that car and watch you drive them there or walk them there day after day. They know where they're going. Is it safe for them to be alone? Probably not. And so having us call them and tell them they're lost was the second part of our study, to let them know you're lost because we can't find you, stay still so we can come get you. So we took that study one step further. Okay, so now that we know we can do this, what challenges may we face? Each learner will have their own skill deficits and general learning characteristics. Therefore, each learner will learn skills to the best of their ability. So outcomes will vary from learner to learner. Some situations are difficult to simulate in real life, right? Things that we talked about can be really tough to be done in your home or in the school. So I would rather not start a fire in the school or in anyone's home. I try not to do that. And we need those things sometimes, though, to show the child it's time to get up and go. So some things we have done were fog machines, taking our fire alarms off online if you're connected directly to the fire department or a company. And so that way we can use some fog and not have the alarm go off without a big response from the fire department at that time. We've had to get creative. It can oftentimes be difficult to find the time and place to teach such skills. Many of these skills involve being in the community with some setup prior done, in addition to the child's regularly scheduled programming. So prioritizing really comes into play here. Really thinking about, as you look at your child's schedule of activities, and include your safety responses that are really important to you and your family. What's going to be the priority? And that might mean having to shuffle around some programs, maybe even closing some programs. But like I said at the beginning, your child's safety is our utmost concern at all times. And of course, generalization. A fire drill is a great practice, but it is not the real deal. Will your child respond the way you have practiced? Heaven forbid there is a real fire and an emergency occurs. And so generalization can also be a problem. Safety skills often require complex discriminations as well. Things that we have to think about teaching is a stranger versus someone you should talk to interact with. So for example, there are many strangers out there for our learners, right? But there are some strangers that might be okay. So for example, when we're working with our students who are lost, technically lost in a training example, at the grocery store, rather than sending them to a stranger, we will send them to a cashier, someone wearing the Stop and Shop shirt. And so really learning a stranger versus someone that might be a stranger, but that you can count on. Which items are dangerous and which are not. And that might be, you know, just a discrimination activity that you do with your learner. And you kind of present many items and sort them into dangerous and not dangerous. And that might be a good place to start, so that they start to learn that a fork is not dangerous, but a steak knife can be dangerous. How far is too far away from parent, teacher, home? So obviously, as your student or child wants to gain more independence, wants to feel their oats a little bit, at what point do you say, now I'm uncomfortable? Typically, we say about a 3 feet range, or as long as I can see you. That's something for you to decide, but how far is too far away for you to not be able to see what your child is up to? And then which stimuli signals that they are lost? If they can't identify that they are lost on their own, how are you going to do that? Are you going to have him have a cell phone on him, an iPad, a tracking device? What way are you going to say, we can't find you, you're lost, stay put? And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Okay. So what can parents do, and professionals, of course, to help? I think step one is to assess where you're at now, right? Some of your kids may already have some of these skills in place. Some of them might have none of these skills in place, and that's okay. We're going to assess it. We're going to assess your home. We're going to assess your child's needs. We're going to assess your family's needs. Then we're going to be proactive. Now that we have the knowledge that we have, let's be proactive. Let's get these items in the IEP so that school can start joining the team, and let's address these behaviors and teach these skills. Okay, so that's the 3-step process we're really looking for here. So since we discussed it earlier, the most common safety concerns, if I had to say the most common safety concerns based on the data, elopement, drowning, abduction, and poisoning. Those are the top 4. So let's start with eloping. Eloping could be wandering away from a caregiver without consent, right? You could be home, you could be going for a walk, you can be any number of places. And if your child just wanders away from you without telling you where they're going, that's wandering, okay? Leaving an area to go somewhere else without permission. So maybe he wants to go on the swings, but he needs to be able to tell you that. Otherwise, he's wandering over to the swings. Escaping something unpleasant. This may happen if your child is near a crying baby and doesn't like that sound. Your child might try to escape and move elsewhere to not hear that sound. And then some of our learners engage in self-stimulatory behavior. So they might dart, they might run, they might pace. And so that's certainly something to look after. I wanted to just do a little clarification between wandering and elopement. I think quite frequently they get clumped together, including by me. Wandering means to move about from place to place with or without a fixed plan, right? You're just wandering around, not sure where you're going, just kind of getting out of Dodge, right? Where elopement is the act of running away. You're wandering away, you're walking away, you're escaping, or otherwise leaving a safe setting unsupervised or unnoticed, okay? You may have a place you want to go. You may not have a place you want to go, but you are really moving somewhere. You're not just wandering anymore. Does that make sense? If not, chat me. How prevalent is elopement? It was found in 2011 that over 80% of children with autism spectrum disorder elope. What was difficult is that it's not possible to predict elopement by age of child, developmental level, number of adults in the household, communicative ability of the child, or leisure skills of the child. That's kind of not helpful, right? That makes us all understand that regardless of how old your child is, regardless of the skills they may have, elopement is still a possibility. And so it's something that we really want to make sure we take a look at the house, we take a look at the environment, and we take a look at your learner and say, how can we do better? Okay. Anderson et al. In 2012 surveyed 1,218 parents of ASD and 10,076 of their siblings. What they came up with was 49% had attempted to elope at least once after age 4. 26% were gone long enough to cause concern. 24% were in danger of drowning. 65% were in danger of traffic injury. There was an increased risk associated with autism severity, increasing on average 9% for every 10-point increases in social responsiveness scale, T-score. And significantly lower risk for unaffected siblings. So this is pretty concerning data, and just reminds us that we have to keep working on the safety of kids with autism. So why do we elope? It's difficult to say. A functional analysis of elopement was conducted in 1997. A few functions were found. People could be eloping to access social attention, right? They might want attention as they run away. They might want that flood of people coming after them. Or maybe they're going to a place where they know they'll get a lot of social interaction. They might be eloping to escape demand, something aversive. Get me out of here. I don't want to hear any more crying babies, or I hate this shopping right. Shop right. I just want to leave this situation. They might leave to go get a tangible item. So oftentimes learners want to leave the aisle that you're in ShopRite and go to the kids aisle, right? They want something tangible. Based on those functions, the treatments that would match those functions would be functional communication training, meaning teaching learners to use their words and to communicate what they want or need as best they can. Blocking, simply not allowing them to elope, maybe holding their hand, maybe standing between the item they want, maybe leaving the building. Differential reinforcement, you can provide reinforcement when they're staying with you and not eloping towards the item that they like or want. And non-contingent reinforcement, so let's say, you know, every time you go to Stop and Shop, he wants a bag of M&Ms and he's going to elope to go get that bag of M&Ms that's in aisle 7, but you want to start in aisle 1. If you come in with a box of M&Ms, you can differentially reinforce him. You can non-contingently reinforce him for staying with you when he's not darting in that direction. Okay, so you're non-contingently reinforcing him. Okay, so those are just some more ideas. Okay, let's go a little further. You know, I'm really not a huge proponent on saying buy every product you can buy, because I'm sure you've learned, especially on Amazon, sometimes things are there one day, gone the next. But there are a lot of products that can really help you while you're teaching these skills to your learner. Okay, while you're in the midst of teaching, you still want a little peace of mind. There are safety locks on windows and doors that you can buy. They're temporary. They're at Bed Bath & Beyond. They're at on Amazon. Amazon has everything. There are door chimes or alarms to indicate when the door or window opens. Now, if you already have a home security system, I'm sure that gives you that availability. But if you do not, and it's an expensive item, you can get portable ones that you can just put on your doors and windows. You can certainly get window guards. I'm sure you've seen those in apartment buildings. They basically block the ability to leave that window without doing a certain number of things to pop it out. And gates locked. There are locks made for gates or yard fences that can really make them incapable of opening without a key or some other way. Okay. So when you do your assessment and you find kind of the weaknesses in the home, do consider what can fix that. And I'm certainly here to help if you have an idea or wonder if I've known of a product, but Amazon has been very helpful. You'd also want to keep emergency responders informed. So think about an elopement. It becomes a crisis very quickly, right? That first 3 minutes that you spend running around your house looking for your child, and then that heart-wrenching moment when you realize you have been unsuccessful and can't find him, things are going to happen really quickly. And so the first thing that should be done is you call 911, right? That's going to get more boots on the floor, as they say. And so it's important that ahead of time, 911 knows about your household. 911 has been informed on the non-emergency line that there is a child with autism that lives here. Provide them with a picture and any information: at risk for wandering, nonverbal, allergic to peanuts, anything that you can think of, okay? You want them to know ahead of time. You can also use an autism elopement form that can be found at www.aware.org or Kind form. These are all free, and it forces you to put in all this important information so that in the time of a crisis, all you have to do is give out these forms to the people that need them, and that part is handled, okay? You don't have to spend time talking and explaining and what kind of birthmarks he might have or any kind of thing like that. It's already done for you. So I really recommend this is one way to get out ahead of an emergency. So the autism wandering, I'm sorry, I have to just move this box for a second. The Autism Wandering Awareness Alerts Response and Education, that's the AWARE. It's a collaboration of 6 national nonprofit autism organizations whose mission is to reduce safety autism-related wandering incidents. So their website can provide a host of information from prevention to safety to resources to general information. And what I love most is it can also give you a sample IEP letter. I know it can be intimidating to walk into a child study team meeting and you might be the sole parent walking in there, and they have their priorities for your child, but you also have your own that matter. And so there's a sample IEP letter that you can bring with you to plead your case and advocate for your child. If you're comfortable and you know your neighbors well, a great tip would be to let your neighbors know. Okay, so if your child leaves the house, are they heading to a neighbor because they have a friend there, because they have a puppy that they like, because they have a pool, whatever it may be, your neighbors could be another set of eyes for you. And if they knew that your child had a propensity for wandering, they would know that they should call you the second they see your child alone, or try and bring your child home or to their house. So really do consider looking at those neighbors that you trust, giving them a picture of your child, the numbers to call, and any concerns, like if they have a pool in the backyard, that's a big concern of yours, things like that, okay? Use them as your extra set of eyes. Know your child's preferred community locations. I'm sure if I asked you right now, tell me the top 3 places your child loves, I'm sure you guys could spit those out in 3 seconds. Those are probably the places that your child is most likely to elope to. Maybe they want a book. Maybe they want to go to a movie theater. Maybe we've had one even try to come to school during the pandemic. You know, they want they don't understand why things have changed, why they can't have access to what they like to have access to. And so they're going to take it upon themselves. And so it's good to know, and for your emergency response team to know where these places are, so those can be checked first. In addition, if you take your child to these places often enough, the staff at those places can recognize that this is a child that should not be left alone. And if you give them your phone numbers, they can then call you and say, hey, I've got Bobby here. He's looking at videos. Is that okay? And you can then have a conversation about what to do. Keep him there until you get there, whatever the case may be. Another important addition is medical identification jewelry. There are many options these days. There are straps to put on the seatbelt, so heaven forbid there was a car accident. The emergency responders would see that the learner wearing this medical alert pad on their seatbelt would need special attention. There are bracelets, there are pendants, there are watch charms, there are shoe tags, there are even temporary tattoos. What I would like to tell you here is when we did this study many years ago, I actually asked many emergency responders what would be the most effective medical alert jewelry, and they said that they always go for the wrist. They look identically, immediately to the wrist. They warn against shoe charms because sometimes kids elope without their shoes. They warn us about if accidents occur, sometimes the shoes are nowhere to be found. They're less likely to look around the body for a temporary tattoo. So if you do use those, make them very visible. The jewelry has to be pretty difficult to come off. As you know, many children have a difficult time wearing jewelry. And so this is something that we can't count on kids to put on before they leave the house every day. So that medical alert one that you see right there to the right, look how challenging that clasp is. That would be a good recommendation I would make. You do also want to think about what information you want on the jewelry. Some parents are very private. They don't want the jewelry to say autism, nonverbal, allergic to Seclor. They want to keep that private, and that's okay. That's your personal decision. There are other brands of companies that just put an identification number on there. And so the emergency responder would call that number, and that number would then call the parent and give them all the information. And so that way we're not giving away any confidential information the family does not want to give away. So that's something to consider if you do go this route, which I highly recommend that every learner, especially nonverbal learners with autism, do have a medical alert bracelet. We certainly work on that very hard here at Alpine, and often teach learners how to cooperate. So we might start off with wearing it for 30 seconds, and then we increase it to a minute, and then a minute and a half, with the goal of this is worn at all times. They even sleep with the bracelets on, but just something to consider. So here are the links to the many companies that you may want to look at. Medic Alert and Medic IDs are the two companies I just talked about in terms of what text they write on there. Road IDs are Velcro. Petite Bubbles Boutique are beautiful, beautiful little beaded charm bracelets. However, they are easily removable, but they do also have temporary tattoos there. So here are the links. You can take a look at your convenience. Identification cards are also helpful. Think about us as adults who are driving. Our driver's license is our ID card, so emergency responders immediately know to go look for that. Unfortunately, for many of our kids, they're not driving, and so they don't have an ID card. At Alpine, we've made ID cards. The Bergen County Sheriff's Department makes ID cards. And so it's important that your child learns to carry around an ID card in case he's lost or he needs to get help. He can just give out his emergency ID card, and that will have your information on it so that they can get in contact with you. You can make your own ID card at www.kidssafeid.com. Okay, you can make your own there. We also have come a long way in terms of cell phones. We used to talk a lot about GPS watches and GPS this and GPS that, and many of them have gone to the wayside as technology has improved. So while there are still some out there, cellular phones have come a really long way in terms of tracking, My Buddy Tag, Life 360. It's just a matter of, will your child who is eloping be carrying their cell phone? That's the issue. But an Apple Watch is certainly part of this too. They have the same capabilities. You can certainly track an Apple Watch. So I'm just putting this out there that this might be a point that you want to look at. You can set geofencing if your child leaves that geofencing while holding the phone or wearing the watch. You'll be notified and then can track him in order to get to him sooner. Okay. If your child does have a cell phone, I would just also recommend that you take advantage of the emergency information provided in the cell phone. They allow for medical ID and emergency SOS. I just put a picture up here of what would be included, and it's very similar to what would be on a bracelet. So this has come a long way, and I think is a great tool for our kids, again, as long as they're holding their cell phone. So I'm just going to go through some programs that you can teach. Some of your kids might already have these skills, some may not. At the end, we're going to talk about a assessment, and so this certainly is not an exhaustive list of programs. It's just a list based on what we've talked about so far, okay? So when we talked about functional communication training, here are some examples of programs that can be taught. Teach your child to ask for attention, right? Chase, come with me, get me, those kinds of things. Teach asking to go places. I want to go to the park. I want to go to the library. Teach asking for tangible items. I want the ball. Teach termination of activities. Can I take a break, please? Things like that. Taking a break might stop an escape behavior, maintain behavior from occurring, right? So it might stop an elopement. But these are the types of functional communication training that I would recommend you start with. Staying with an adult is super important. So we teach a child to walk alongside us. And then when we stop, he should stop with us. When we turn, he should turn with us. We use varied phrases. We might say, walk with me, stay with me, walk this way, just to really help him realize that all those terms mean the same thing. We make sure that he's standing alongside of us. We differentially reinforce for staying with you. We then fade our prompts, fade our tangible reinforcers, generalize across settings and people. We program out in the community, and we train the parent to do the same. That's kind of from start to finish how we would train up a program like this, okay? And later on, I didn't have enough time in an hour, but we do have some videos on all of these. And so later on, you will get my email address. I can certainly check with the parents. And if I get permission, I can share some of those videos with you if you'd rather see it rather than just hear it. We can certainly do that, okay? Another important skill that seems sort of basic, but can be life-saving is stops. Right? When you say stop, does the learner stop? Teach a child to stop walking and to wait for you to come back to, and for wait to come back to you. Walk alongside the child, state instructions, stop. Guide the child to stop walking by guiding by the shoulder. Provide reinforcement for stopping. Have the child run alongside of you and then present the instruction, stop. Generalize across settings and people, really important, right? We don't want him to just do that when I say it. Programming the community, that's real life, so he's got to be able to do it in the community, and then train the parent who's going to take over that skill. So imagine you're going for a walk and your child is running ahead of you and you see a curb. You want to be able to say stop and your child stop right then and there before entering the roadway, right? That's the goal of this program. Waits in a designated area. This can be really important, especially when you're shopping or you're managing something and you just need him or her to just wait, which is really difficult for our guys. So you teach a child to wait in a designated location without leaving the area. We might use a stimulus prompt, like a piece of paper on the floor. Stand on this piece of paper, don't move. Wait here. We stand at a distance and provide reinforcement for staying on the stimulus. We vary the location, so we're not always in the same place. We fade that stimulus, so we start to cut down that paper and the proximity to the child, so we get further away. We generalize across settings and people. We program in the community, of course, and then we train the parent to take over, okay? Inhibits opening the doors and communicates requests for location. We teach the child to not open doors and windows and to request the location instead. So we place stop signs on the doors and windows along with the communication card, and we prompt the student to read the stop sign and to walk away. So when they approach the door, they see the stop sign. We teach them, once you see that stop sign, you walk away. We might tell the student to go out or to open the door, right? We're setting them up for a trial. We need many trials to be able to teach them this skill. When he gets to the door, we prompt him to read stop. We take the communication card to the exchange and exchange it with an adult, and we fade proximity to the child. Once the adult gets that card, they can then give him permission to go outside because he now allowed an adult to take him outside. We generalize across settings and people. We program in the community, and we train the parent. You see our steps here, they all pretty much line up. Engages in the communication card, exchanges communication card, very similar. We teach the learner to exchange a communication card when asked if they are lost or a social question. So for example, they're in the grocery store, no one's around, somebody says, are you lost? Where's your mom? Do you need something? They learn to pull out this ID card. So the ID card's in their pocket, in their wallet, in their purse. We guide the child to hand the card to the person who's asking. We reinforce the response of handing that card, and we generalize across settings and people and our usual. We program in the community and train the parent. The whole idea with this is that the person who gets that communication card can read, I'm lost, I have autism, please call my mom, and the number's there, okay? So we can reunite them. So again, like I said earlier, I don't want you to think items that are available right now. They might not always be available, but here we are in a pandemic, hopefully dreaming of a vacation coming up, entering really busy locations, certainly not a time that we want to be weaving in and out of people within 6 feet from us. And so there are actual clothing available that has a QR code that could identify who your child is in the event that they get lost. Let's say you're in Disney World, you've tried your hardest to keep you all together, it's busy, one of your children go missing. If you have this type of clothing on them and you notify the park police and you explain to them what kind of clothes they have, this could easily identify that this child belongs to you, okay? So this is something great for right now. Clothes called Independence Day wearable with technology. Remember I talked about how some of these GPS clothings or watches come and go. Right now, these are here, and they're basically wearable GPS clothing, and so they're trackable. So this might help too, depending on what location you're going to and how high your child's risk is of elopement. Let's spend some time talking on drowning, and I see that I'm coming close to my 1 hour mark, so I'm going to try and move a little bit quicker here. Drowning is the #1 cause of unintentional death for children ages 1 through 4, and probably the largest cause of unintentional death for children ages 1 through 10. Accidental drowning accounted for 91% of total deaths reported in children with autism ages 14 and younger between 2009 and 2011. So this is a big area we want to focus on. I really want to encourage people to identify special swim programs for children with special needs. You know, your children are going to be around water at any given time, whether you're on vacation or they're at somebody's house. And so So there's going to be an interest there. And so I think you'd feel much more comfortable and provide your child with a really great skill if you teach them how to swim. During that time, they can be taught safety rules like walking and not running or not jumping. That can all be taught during these lessons. And then making sure we teach them, can I go swimming? Teach discrimination skills of where swimming is acceptable, e.g. at the pool with the parent, lifeguard, not at the lake. Okay, so you can really set those boundaries with the learners. Adult supervision has to be there at all times by a competent adult supervision. Watch the child at all times. It can't be a cousin. It can't be somebody who's also in the pool. It needs to be someone who's sitting back and their goal is to make sure everybody in that pool is safe. Window locks, self-latching, self-locking gates, door and gate alarms, pool alarms, whatever it takes to secure that pool, I think is actually the law. You have to ensure that that pool has a gate around it and is safe. CPR and water safety instruction for the parent is highly recommended. It doesn't take long. Certainly helpful if you take the Red Cross class and get CPR certified. It certainly adds a bit of peace of mind. And make sure your neighbor or nearby pools are safe and secure, because trust me, your child will probably uncover where they are. If possible, gate ponds or lakes. Again, any pool of water, you want to keep as safe and inaccessible as possible. In the event that you're all in bed and you're not watching the pool, there is something called a pool guard alarm, and it sits at the edge of the pool, and the alarm sits in the house, and if there are vibrations in the pool, it will alarm in the house. So that could tell you, for example, if your child got up in the middle of the night and jumped in the pool, that will sound. The turtle is also a wristband. It can also be put on the hat, that if that gets wet, it signals the base station, which can also be in the house. It could be up to 100 feet from the pool. And so either one of these can let you know when your child or your pool, when your child is wet or when your pool is in use. And they can be purchased at www.childsafetystore.com. Let's talk about fire safety. I'm getting to the end. I'm sorry. I'll just try to talk a lot faster. As you know, working fire alarms in each room that people sleep in is crucial. Each floor of the house should also have a fire extinguisher. Teach use of a fire extinguisher if appropriate. Obviously, we're not going to teach a 3-year-old, but teaching a 15-year-old seems like it could be appropriate. Make sure you lock away matches and lighters. Make sure your fireplace is secure. Make sure you're not burning candles or leaving candles unattended. You know, if in the case where emergency responders would have to come out, it's certainly helpful to have them understand there is a child with autism in that home. And many of these departments have gone through sensitivity trainings, so they know that these learners might be scared to come to somebody in uniform. They know that they might be scared in chaos like that. And so the emergency responders may act a little bit differently if they know ahead of time that your child may engage in some of these issues. We suggest conducting fire drills at home until fluent. Register with the local fire department, the decal or other indication on your house that you have a child with ASD. And really, when you're talking about practicing a fire drill, it's like you get out of the house and where do you go? You go to your neighbor's house and you sit there, or your neighbor's deck. So as a family, looking around your yard and saying, what's far enough away that we can get together safely? But wouldn't it be great if your child learned to hear that alarm and run and know where to end up? That's certainly a peace of mind. Poisoning, I'm going to go over very quickly. There is a poison control number. I suggest you put it up by your phone. Every day, 374 children in the United States ages 0 to 19 are treated in an emergency department, and 2 children die as a result of being poisoned. Expand your idea of what poison is. It's not just Cerino, it's medicines, it's household cleaners, it's plant food. It could be anything not meant to be consumed. Remove poisons from the house or secure them in a locked area. Maybe you lock up a cabinet. Label all potential poisons, maybe with the same label. Maybe they all have this little poison label we have here, and your child learns anything marked with that label, don't touch. Locks on cabinets in the house and in the garage, anywhere you feel like there are items that could cause damage or cause a safety situation for your child, lock them up. Alarms to the garage. Again, this is another exit point for your child, so consider alarms to your garage. Establish areas of the kitchen as off limits, so cabinets that you feel like have a lot of glass in them or sharp knives or chemicals, those are off limit cabinets. Try and work with your children on that. There's also lock boxes for medications that you could use, something similar like this. They're all over Amazon, the Container Store, but lock up any medication that your son or daughter really should not be getting into. Traveling considerations. I'm going to go over this really fast, I promise. Plan ahead. So just like you have your house as a fort, traveling can be really difficult, right? We all want to go away, especially after this pandemic, hopefully soon. We all want to go away and we want to look at the beach and we want a beachfront room and we want a balcony. But if you have a child with a water fascination, that might make your vacation super stressful. And so just a few quick recommendations. There are portable door alarms that you can put on your hotel doorknob. You can bring the turtle with you, and your son or daughter could wear it on their wrist or their hat. If they get submerged in water, it will sound. Choose a hotel without a pool or a room far away from the pool or no balcony. I know this sounds crazy, right? But for me, I want you as a family to decide what's going to give you the greatest peace of mind, because isn't that what vacations are for, right? To calm your mind. And so sometimes we have to make tough decisions to keep everybody safe and to help us relax. And so you may also want to inform your hotel staff that if this specific child should be found anywhere alone, something's not okay, please let us know. When going out for the day, you're going to a major amusement park, take a photo of your child that morning, right on your cell phone. Doesn't need to be a Polaroid or anything like that. What's today's outfit? What's today's hairstyle? Any additional characteristics? Because when you need the police involved, that's much more helpful to them. We talked about this a little bit earlier. How does one know they are lost? Many times it's very abstract. And so knowing your location in relation to the potential location of others, it can be really difficult for your child, and motivation to be reunited or to get a destination. So what I recommend here is putting in systems like we talked about before to let your child know when you think they are lost, okay? So they might not think they're lost, but if you can't find them, they're lost enough. And so really considering some of those studies we showed you above.
Kate, we're coming down to the end of the hour. I just wanted to make sure we had some time for questions. I know there's a lot in the handouts which we'll make available to everybody. So I'll let you wrap up and then we'll see if there's some questions.
Okay, I'm just going to skip through this because you're going to see this on the assessment. So I'm going to skip through all this. You'll get it though, don't get mad at me. What I'd really like you to take a look at when you get these handouts is writing a safety plan. So based on what the assessment shows you are kind of areas to work on, you'll make a safety plan for your child. So what needs to happen in the home? Do we need to install door alarms, window alarms? What do we need to do? What skills do we need to target? What are our priorities in terms of teaching skills to make our child safer? When an elopement does occur, rather than everyone running in different directions, who does what? Mom will call police, dad will go looking, focusing on routes to McDonald's, library, town pool. Remember we talked about those 3 favorite places. sister will call neighbors, and brother will stay by the phone in case of any updates. This is the kind of plan that we're hoping you can leave today with. Here are some resources that you can check out. Again, if you'd like any of the articles I mentioned, email me. If you'd like to request a video, I can do my best, email me. Goal of today was not to make you lose sleep, to get you thinking about safety, really observing your home and your child to see what changes might need to be made or what priorities you may come out with, and just becoming proactive in addressing these issues.
Thank you, Kate. That was
There's
terrific.
my email if you want to write it down. Feel free to email me any questions, comments, concerns.